Welcome to this mini lecture on Philosophies of Education. This presentation highlights major traditional and progressive philosophies. For the purpose of studying the philosophies, we make some sharp distinctions between them. In practice, however, there is much crossover and gray area. We would not expect a person or an education system or a curriculum to express only one of these philosophies, but rather fall somewhere on a continuum of being more traditional to being more progressive. Therefore, we might think of the distinctions we're making between these philosophies as somewhat artificial and helpful to us more as a study tool. So, what is philosophy and what do we mean by a philosophy of education? Philosophy comes from the Greek words philos, or love, and sophia, or wisdom. Philosophia is love of wisdom. Philosophy is an academic discipline in itself used to critique theories, viewpoints, and systems. Sometimes philosophy is said to help us make sense of the world. I like to say philosophy is a tool for approaching problems. A philosophy of education, then, is a particular view or approach to the social institution of education. Philosophy asks, what is education? What are its purposes and goals? What is an educated person? What do we teach, and what is the teacher's role? For our purposes in this course, a philosophy of education is a systematic way to critique the institution. Because we live in a pluralist society, there are different philosophies or ways to critique. This presentation looks at 4 philosophies of education that are either more traditional or more progressive: essentialism, perennialism, existentialism, and critical philosophy. Let's begin with traditional philosophy. Like the name implies, a traditional philosophy of education has its roots in ancient Greek ideas about education. There is a focus on traditional academic subjects such as math, science, social studies, and English language arts. The purpose of education is to transmit culture on these subjects and prepare students to function in society. There are 2 main camps in traditional philosophy. Perennialists are those who believe in teaching the classics as timeless truths that do not change. And essentialists are those who believe in adapting traditional academic curriculum to changing needs of current times. What remains important, though, is the belief in truth, Western canon, and the purpose of education as a way to prepare students to function in society. So, what might these philosophies look like in practice? How would you recognize a traditional philosophy of education in a policy, program, or person? You would probably see a standardized and predetermined curriculum, which means all students receive instruction on the same content. You might hear the expression common sense or back to basics. The teacher is viewed as the expert whose job is to transmit meaning to students. Perennialists would emphasize content with unchanging themes of Western civilization. Essentialists would adapt that content to reflect contemporary times. Important to both is the idea that democratic society functions when its citizens enjoy a shared common knowledge. Moving on, what are the big ideas about a progressive philosophy of education? Again, like the name implies, a progressive philosophy is a more contemporary perspective that emphasizes reform and moving forward. It also tends to be student rather than content focused. So, what does it look like? How would a progressive philosophy of education be expressed by a school system or teacher or policy? You would probably see a more student-focused, needs-driven curriculum, which means content would not be the same for all groups of students. Instead, content would emphasize preparation for life, which might look different from one community to the next. There might be a breaking away from the emphasis on math, science, social studies, and English language arts to include other content areas, such as career exploration. The teacher's role here is more of a facilitator whose job is to guide student learning. Next, we look at an existential philosophy of education. This philosophy is considered more progressive in that it focuses on people's experiences of being. It rejects the idea of one truth or hard facts and emphasizes human experiences as truth. So, what might this look like? How would an existential philosophy of education be expressed? You would probably see an emphasis on the humanities, arts, languages, and social sciences. You might read or hear someone say how their background has influenced their beliefs in education. Students are considered to be unique individuals who will develop their own authentic knowledge about the world. Here, the teacher's role is more about coaching students to create their own ideas about the content. Finally, we come to a critical philosophy of education. Like the name implies, a critical philosophy emphasizes power imbalance and views schooling as a method of reproducing a particular ideology. Critical philosophy is also considered progressive in that education is viewed as a political activity that indoctrinates students in the ways of the dominant culture. Teachers can assume the role of change agent and become advocates for social justice. So, what might this look like? How would a critical philosophy of education be expressed? You would probably see a questioning or challenging of the notions of Western civilization and how it is reproduced in curriculum. Instead, there might be an emphasis on diverse content and critical pedagogy. Students are considered to be unique individuals who need to become their own advocates and agents of social change. A democratic society is considered one in which there is a constant struggle between the values and beliefs of different groups. Education is viewed as taking an important part in that struggle. To recap, then, most educational philosophies fall on a continuum of being more traditional to being more progressive. We have looked at essentialism and perennialism, which fall on the traditional end of the continuum, and existentialism and critical philosophy, which fall more on the progressive end of the continuum. In wrapping up this mini lecture, I asked the question of why we should be interested in philosophies of education. Why do we need them? Well, that's a matter of opinion, right? I think philosophy is important in building an understanding of our system of education so that we can critique it with some guiding principles, values, and beliefs. The four main philosophies we touch on in this course, perennialism, essentialism, existentialism, and critical philosophy, afford us ways to critique the institution. Being able to critique U.S. public education in a systematic way is important to us as students, educators, and citizens. As a final thought, think about this. One of the objectives of this course is to develop a personal philosophy of education. So, how does this differ from just having an opinion about education? A personal philosophy of education is your systematic approach to the field, guided by a set of principles, values, and beliefs. This system of beliefs will probably reflect some combination of the four philosophies we mentioned here, but will lean more towards being traditional or being progressive. Or it may reflect philosophies we have not even mentioned. But by stating what your philosophy of education is, colleagues can better understand you and your actions as an educational professional.